My name is Hayden Falzon from falzonfantasy.com and welcome to this tutorial. So to enable the plugin, we're first going to come up here to our Edit, then Preferences, and then we're going to navigate to our Add-ons tab and make sure we turn on Testing. We can then search for After Effects and you should see that it comes up with an Import, Export Adobe After Effects.jsx. Now this is still in testing, but it is working now. So you just want to tick this checkbox here to enable it. Then after that, if you navigate to File, Export, you should see a new export option of a .jsx. Now, this is not going to export a cube or any type of geometry data. What it is going to export is going to export positional data, camera data, and light data. If I have a cube, it's going to export that as a null object in After Effects. So let's do this now. I'm just going to do a very quick animation of this camera. So, just do a location rotation, go to frame 40, kind of zoom that in here, make it a pretty interesting camera move. Very, very terrible. But it should illustrate the power and potential that this add-on has. And it's great to see that it's now working in 2.8. So now that we have our very terrible animation set up, I'm just going to press A to select everything. And then I'm going to go over to File, Export, Adobe After Effects. And then you want to make sure that all of this is selected to on. So what it's going to do is going to export the animation data, export the active camera. So what that is going to tell After Effects is actually going to tell it the focal length and all the necessary details to match the camera 1-to-1, which is fantastic. It's also going to export the object's positional and rotational and scale data in the form of a null object. So find a place to save this as. And I'm going to save it as After Effects tutorial. Excellent. So we're just going to export that. Now in After Effects, now I'm working on the CS6, so if you're working on CC, it may be a little bit different, but not too much. The same functionality should still be available. We come down to File, Scripts, Run Script File. Then navigate to where you saved your JSX file. And this is your JSX file. It should look something like this. Then open it up. Then it's going to come up with a prompt composition name. You can leave that as is, or you can name it whatever you want. So I'm just going to call this Blender Tutorial. Now in your project settings, you should have a new composition called Blender Tutorial. So let's just open this up. Now, as you can see, we have our light object as a null, our object, and if I scrub through here, you'll see that we also have our camera animation. This is really fantastic, and it's great for, let's say, if you wanted to do some composition within After Effects of a scene that you created in Blender to get a bit of spatial awareness. So if you want to use, let's say, a lens flare plugin, for example, all that you would have to do is link it up to this null object up here, which is the light, and you would just link the positional values into that null object. So it just creates for a very easy and no guesswork required sort of approach to editing and compositing scenes within After Effects that you have created in Blender. Because let's face it, After Effects, while it may say it's got 3D capabilities, isn't really for editing in 3D. You're much better in editing in something like Blender, and then using that information to drive your effects in After Effects. So if I was then to create a new solid, let's just create a nice deep blue solid, and then I'm going to make that a 3D object. I want my transform tools of this position, scale, rotation. There we go. Let me get my rotation of this. So let me just copy the rotation, plug it into there. And then I'm just going to scale that down a little bit. And yeah, done. Look at that. It's pretty great. So if we compare that to our Blender, you should see that the camera movement should be indistinguishable. You know, aside from not being in sync. But yes, very powerful, especially if you're editing a 3D camera. You want to do it in a native 3D program because the editing it in After Effects would just be a pain. And in this industry, you want to be as efficient as possible. So I hope that you've enjoyed this tutorial, and I hope that it is showing you some of the potential that this plugin has for increasing the efficiency of your workflow. If you've learned something new or thoroughly enjoyed the tutorial, smash that like button and consider subscribing and joining our nearly 4,000 subscribers. Also remember to hit that bell button to be notified